So in today's class, what we are going to discuss, the one of the most revolutionary literary theories, and what is that? The feminist literary theory. That is also known as a feminist criticism. Okay, feminist literary theories or the feminist literary criticism. This theory emerged as a response against the patriarchal values we all have studied already that dominated literature and culture for the centuries. Okay. Feminist critics, we all know, critics examines how literature reinforces or challenges the social, political, and economical operations of women in this patriarchal scenario. So there are many important feminist literary critics who have explained us that what should be the scenario and what should be the circumstances can be changed if you give an opportunity to the woman. Okay. So from Mary Wollstonecraft to Simone de Beauvoir, from Virginia Woolf to Ellen Sholter, all these feminist thinkers have reshaped how we read, what we write, and how a woman should interpret or text. A woman should judge their own text, not any other male critic. So this is what we are going to discuss in today's class. Do watch the video till end and share to all the students who are now, because we do not have much time. Mock test class I have already started. If any of you want to the any of you want the PDF of the mock test questions or any other questions that I am sharing now, you can join the membership and simply notify me so that I can share you the PDF. Okay. Now let's start the class. So feminist literary theory, which is also known as the feminist criticism. Okay. Feminism, feminist literary criticism. So it is rooted in women's rights movements of the late 18th to 19th century, majorly. And there in this video, we will discuss the view of feminism that is divided and what are the aspects of that. We will discuss everything. So let me ask you a question. Do you really, my videos are watching by the male and the female, both the viewers. Okay. So I am teaching you how we are going to judge this, how you are going to judge my teaching. Obviously, they have different judgment and they will have a different judgment. So to many of, if somebody will comment, if any male viewer comment that what is she doing, how she is teaching, she's only taking the side of the female. But while on the other hand, the female student will say, no, she is good, she has nice teaching skill, she is explaining everything, whether it's in the form of notes or whether she is explaining on the basis of the experience. So there would be the differentiation. But here, a lot of female viewers will come together and support. And they will say that your work should not be judged by any male perspective, but there should be the separate one. There should be the female critics, the female judgment that should be given to you. Why any male writers, why any male critic judge your teaching skills? They have their own different genre, they have their own different style of teaching. So there should be the differentiation on the both perspective. So this is what the feminist literary theory, feminist literary criticism emerges, and let's start how. So feminist literary theory examines literature through the lens of gender. Okay, focusing on how text reinforce or challenge the social, political, and economic operation of women in society by the male gender. Okay. It seeks to expose patriarchal ideology in writing and reclaim the female voice in literature and criticism. So, by creating this feminist criticism, we are here simply challenging the patriarchal ideology, their perspective, their mindset, that what are they thinking about any female writer's work. So, we have studied so far that the many of the writers during that ages have a create issue. So that is why many of writers who have published their work by changing their names under pseudonyms. Okay, and this is what because of the patriarchal society, their ideologies about a woman, about a female writers. So here feminist criticism is both a political movement and a critical approach to literature. So through the literature, how feminist criticism changed the perspective of the male people also, we will discuss in this. In short, feminist criticism questions how literature perpetuates gender roles and also it promotes female representation and authorship, the female writers. Okay. So here the first wave that was started in the 19th early to 20th century focused on women's suffrage and legal rights, that is the writers who were majorly included Mary Wollstonecraft and Virginia Woolf, and their aim was to establish women's right to write and reason. Virginia Woolf in the work A Room of Wands on talked about the female should have their financial dependency, independency, so that they can write freely. And Mary Wollstonecraft judged by giving a lot of vindication of rights of women. Mary Wollstonecraft, and she talked about the different perspective of the female criticism. Okay, by discarding the male critic. So this was the first wave. Then we second wave came, which was in the 1960s to 1980s, that focused on gender roles, patriarchy, and the representation in culture and the literature. And in this, you will include the Simone de Beauvoir, Kate Millett, Ellen Sholter, and Betty Friedan, and their aim was to challenge male-centered literary traditions and expose gender ideology. What is the ideology of any male writer about a female one, or what should be the perspective of a female writer for the female critic for the female writer? Okay, so there you can say the female now raising their voice for the in by literature, by their work, and totally they were discarding the patriarchal norms in the society. Why any female writer change their name while publishing any work? Why they publish any work under any pseudonyms? Why should they change their name? Why they did not have any rights of any financial dependency? Why they should always depend on male, their parents, or their father, their brother, their husband? So this is the thought that the female criticism, feminist criticism challenges. Then third wave, which was the 1990s onwards, addressed diversity, intersectionality, race, and sexuality. And the writers who were included here, Bell Hooks, Gayatri Spivak, Judith Butler, and Chandra Talpade Mohanty, and their aim was to include women of color, global feminism, and queer perspective. Now here they are talking about there should not be any woman judged on the basis of their race, their color, but throughout the world, all of the female writers should be judged equally. And they also talked about the transaction, gender, the queer theories. That is how it emerged. Okay. So here, the key feminist critics and what are the concepts they gave us. So first, Mary Wollstonecraft, 1759 to 1797. Remember the work and key concept. A Vindication of the Rights of Women, 1792. This is the PYQs. Key idea she gave: women appear inferior because they lack opportunities and not intellect. Lack opportunities, they are not provided the equal opportunities as men in the society. So this is what she talked about. Why women are lacking in anything? Because they do not have opportunities like all the men have in the societies. If they will be provided the same opportunities, they will be above to the men, or they will be equal. So there should not be any inferiority left between any men or a woman. Okay. She gave the concept, she advocated women's education and rational equality, and asserted that women are not naturally inferior to men, they lack opportunities for education. The women do not have the equal opportunities only in field of everything, whether in the form of you are how you are treating a woman in your house, at your home, and you are also discriminating between the boy and girl. You are giving a lot of good, you are giving all the necessities, facilities to the boy while comparing to the girl. You are educating your son by sending in any boarding or private school, but while on the other hand the girl is not able to receive any education that she deserves. So this is how there is a difference you are here creating. So how women will be equal? So here is the opportunities, they lack opportunity in the sense, not only for the education, but in the field of everything that women is not provided any opportunity. And that is why they feel inferior. That is why the men look women as an inferior to men. Okay. So it is a natural that the people from the ages have set their minds that women should stay at home. They deserve to do all the household chores. They should not go out. They should not receive any formal or informal education. They just sit at home and do the work, and they should marry to a man and depend on the husband, or before marriage they should depend on the father or brother. So here they were raising the voice, and that is how the feminist criticism emerged, and I think it was good. So famous line here by her: I do not wish them to have power over men but over themselves. She led the intellectual foundation for first wave feminism, the Mary Wollstonecraft, very important. Then another one we have John Stuart Mill, British philosopher and the political economist, and he gave the Subjection of Women 1869, and key ideas: society's progress depends on the freedom of both sexes. So here he did not only talk about or support it, but he said that society's progress, or the society's progress depends on both the sexes. If you will provide the equal opportunity, whether it's a male or female, then your country will progress. The concept he gave: early liberal feminism, that is equality through the law and suffrage, and he also advocated the legal equality and women's right to vote, linked feminism with liberalism. Okay. Then Virginia Woolf was a British novelist and essayist. Okay. The major work, A Room of One's Own, which was an essay 1929, and the Three Genius 1938. The concept must remember: women need financial independence and a private space to create art. And she also criticized male dominated literary history, and she created the idea of androgynous mind, a mind that is not confined to gender limits, the mind that should not uh, create any difference between the gender. And according to this androgynous mind, both should be the equal. Both sexes, both male and female, are equal. So famous quote: a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. Okay. Then Simon de Beauvoir, nationality, she was a French existentialist philosopher, and the important work, The Second Sex, in 1949, what she talked about the existential feminism, the other, that means the woman as the opposite of man in patriarchal culture. So here, according to her, woman is treated as the other. a secondary being defined by a man. And she introduced the existential roots of gender construction. Man treated women as other, but not like them. And this is the perspective of the male patriarchal society, that the woman is a nothing, woman is a other being. The important quotes you can remember: one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. The society is responsible to do this. Betty Friedan talked about, who was also an American feminist writer and activist, and the important work, The Feminine Mystic 1963. This is the PYQ they ask in the chronology matching. Concept she gave: domestic ideology and the female alienation, called the problem that has no name. Okay. She sparked the second wave feminist movement in the US. Then Kate Millett, we have a Kate Millett, nationality, the American feminist literary critic, also sexual politics. She talked about the work in 1970, and she discussed. She examined patriarchal structures in literature, and she defined patriarchy as the underlying system of power. She critiqued male writers like D.H. Lawrence, Norman Mailer, and Henry Miller for reinforcing sexism. Remember, this is the PYQ, that who were the writers that has been criticized by Kate Millett. Okay. Then Alan Sholter, the very important, was also an American literary critic and the founder of gynocriticism. Very, very important term. A literature of their own, 1977. Okay. The concept she talked about is, she advocated studying women's literature as a separate tradition, and she identified the three stages of women's writing, and very, very important. This is the first one: feminine, that means the imitation of male writers like George Eliot, she talked about. Then feminist, that means the protest against the male standards. And the female, that means the self discovery and authenticity by a female world. She established Anglo-American feminism that focuses on women as writers. Okay, so this is the writers. Now, the minor one, we have Troil Moe, who was a Norwegian literary theorist, and the work is Sexual Textual Politics 1985. Remember, the concept she gave introduced the French feminists like Kristeva, Irigaray, Zeus to English readers, and they are important. Okay, Julia Kristeva, they are very important. She distinguished between the Anglo-American and the French feminism. Okay, then Julia Kristeva we have, who was a Bulgarian French psychoanalyst and theorist. The work Revolution in Poetic Language 1974 and The Powers of Horror 1982. And the concept you must remember about her, the semiotic, that means the pre-linguistic and symbolic, the social orders. Concept of abjection, this is the PYQ, very important. That means the rejection of what disturbs identity, and like motherhood, blood, and death. Objection, rejection of what disturbs any identities. As she seen as a part of a French feminism. Okay. Helen Zeus we have a nationality. She was also a French writer and the theorist. The Laugh of the Medusa is the very important work, and she advocated the écriture feminine. This is also a PYQ, very important. That means the female writing she talked about. It means writing from the female body, celebrating different emotion. Okay. She encouraged women to write themselves into history. Remember everyone? Louis Irigaray we have, was a Belgian-born French philosopher. This sex which is not one, 1977. You can cross-check the year, everybody. Concept she talked about feminine language and the sexual difference, and she criticized Freud, Lacan for male-centered psychoanalysis, who exclude women from the symbolic order. Remember, who criticized whom? Jacques Lacan and Sigmund Freud. She proposed female sexuality as a plural and a fluid. Okay, so these were the writers. Then bell hooks we have, who was also who was an African American feminist and a social critic. The major works Ain't I a Woman, Black Woman and Feminism 1981. The work has already been asked. Feminist Theory from Margin to Center 1984. The concept you must remember. This is the very filtered out point I have put here. You can, if you will read this once, you will understand. Introduce the intersectionality, though coined later by Kimberly Crenshaw, also argued that race, class, and gender intersect in oppression and also advocated inclusive feminism that is beyond white and middle class women. Okay. Then another one we have Judith Butler, very, very important, who was an American philosopher and gender theorist. Gender Trouble is a very important work you must read. Concept here she gave gender performativity. Gender is not innate, it's performed through repeated social acts. It means simply that the male one, since beginning, since a girl child born, they keep reminding them, they keep doing all those things that that made them feel that they are a female. So that is what the repeated social acts. They should wear a frock. They should play with a doll. They should leave. They should leave at home. They should not receive the education as the boy should. So this was the repeated actions by a society that they should do since the very beginning when a girl child born. So this is what the gender performativity talks about. Okay. Founder of queer theory, in this, she challenged binary views of gender, the transactional. We perform gender roles based on the social expectations and key figure in queer theory of you can remember. Then Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak, Indian literary theorist and post-colonial feminist. The important work by her, Can the Subaltern Speak 1988, she gave us silencing of marginalized women under colonial and patriarchal system. She combined post-colonialism and feminism together and the subaltern, that means those without voice in hegemonic structure. She also criticized Western feminism for ignoring the third world women's voices and subaltern, that means to silence or marginalize women in colonial society. Okay. Then Chandra Talpade Mohanty, under Western Eyes, Feminist Scholarship and Colonial Discourse, 1984, the important work and the concept who criticized Western feminists for generalizing third world women and advocated transnational and inclusive feminism. Very, very important, this concept you must remember about her. Minor feminist, you must remember the Gilbert and Susan Goober, the Mad Women in the Attic, 1979. In this, they reinterpreted women in literature while having the example of Bertha Mason in Jane Eyre as symbols of suppressed female creativity. Then Adrienne Rich of Women Born 1976, which is compulsory heterosexuality and lesbian existence 1980. She focused on motherhood and female sexuality and criticized patriarchal control of motherhood. She advocated lesbian identity and women's autonomy. Okay. And she also, Germaine Greer, the female Jung, 1970, she criticized society's control over female sexuality. So these were the minor writers. Then another one we have Margaret Fuller, Women in the 19th Century, 1845. Concept she gave intellectual equality, women as spiritual equals of man. One of the first feminist critics in American literature. So important because the first one. Then let's talk about the liberal feminism, the branches of feminism. Okay, the branches of feminism we have a liberal feminism. The liberal feminism seeks equal rights and opportunities for women in politics, education, and workplace, okay, within existing social structure rather than overturning them. In the same scenario, in the same circumstances, the women and men should have an equal opportunities in the terms of in field of everything, whether it's a field of education, whether it's a field of politics or any other opportunities. So I hope you have got the point of all these important things. The important question I have put here, Who among the following represent liberal feminism? Simone de Beauvoir, Mary Wollstonecraft, Helen Joyce, or Judith Butler? Liberal feminism. What would be the correct answer? You just saw. So, liberal feminism is by Mary Wollstonecraft, everybody. Mary Wollstonecraft, she advocated for women's education and nationality within social reform, not revolution. That is the hallmark of a liberal feminism, liberal in the sense of a freedom. Radical feminism, remember radical feminism that sees patriarchy as the root cause of women's oppression, demands complete social and sexual revolution, and key figures that relates to the radical feminism we have Kate Millett, Shulamit Firestone, and Germaine Greer. Okay, and the concept in radical feminism, you can patriarchy, they challenge male control over sexuality and reproduction, and the personal is political. The question you can understand the personal is political is the slogan of which branch of feminism? So it is the radical feminism. Okay, with the one example of question, the PYQs I have taken here to make you understand which type of question you can face. Then Marxist and social feminism. What does this talk about? So this connect women's oppression to class struggle, capitalism. In this, they argues women are exploited both economically and socially. Talked about and in this the writer you will see here Frederick Engels, The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State, Juliet Michel, Women's State, and the Sylvia Frederick, Caliban and the Witch. These are the writers. They talked about the double oppression, that means the class and gender of a woman, reproduction as unpaid labor, and the economic independence as a liberation. Example question you can understand. Juliet Michel's Women State is associated with which feminist school? So it is associated with Marxist feminism. Okay. And she is the one who combined Marxism with psychoanalysis to explore women's roles under capitalism. Then psychoanalytic feminism that which examines how unconscious desires and family structures shape gender identity and female subjectivity. How gender shapes throughout the ages in the family, that is also a major part, major discussion. The family shapes a gender. What the circumstances of family face, that is on the basis of that they treat a female in their family. So key figures here, Nancy, The Reproduction of Mothering 1978, Julia Kristeva, Powers of Horror 1982, Helen Zeus, Lucy Irigaray. These are the writers who are related with psychoanalytic feminism. Concept they gave and they talked about mother-daughter relationship, language, body and desire, a creature feminism, that is the feminist writing. Let's see the question. Who among the following links feminism and psychoanalysis through the concept of objection? It was Julia Kristeva. Okay, Julia Kristeva. Objection simply to describe how identity forms through the rejection of the maternal and taboo. Then postmodern feminism we have. Postmodern feminism. Postmodern feminism rejects universal categories of women, instead views gender, identity and sexuality as a fluid. And also it constructs and performative. Key figures, Judith Butler we have, the work Gender Trouble, and the Donna Haraway, a cyber manifesto. Okay. Concepts they talk about gender performativity, fragmented identities and deconstructions of womanhood. Okay. Remember the example question you can hear, Judith Butler's idea that gender is performed not innate belongs to which feminist branch? It is related with the postmodern feminism. Okay, postmodern feminism. Postmodern feminism. Okay. Then black intersectional feminism. What are these? I have included everything in this feminist criticism part. But still, if I lack somewhere, if I have missed, please notify me, everybody. It's your duty now. So, black intersectional feminism criticizes white middle class feminism for ignoring race, class, and cultural emphasizes intersectionality. And the key figures in this feminism, you have Bell Hooks, Order Lord, and Angela Davis. Concept, they talked about intersectionality, race, class plus gender operation, and the inclusion of all women's voices. The question you must remember, which type of you can see, who coined the concept of intersectionality in feminism? This is the PYQ. It is a Kimberly Crenshaw. Kimberly Crenshaw, okay? Crenshaw introduced the intersectionality to describe overlapping system of the operation that relates to gender, race, and class. Then we have ecofeminism. Ecofeminism that explores the connection between the woman and the culture, that relates the woman and the nature, arguing both are exploited under patriarchal and capitalist system. The way nature has been exploited by all the humans in this world today. So they talked about this. They combine, they connect both women and nature. And the writer here you will find Vandana Shiva, Staying Alive Women, Ecology and Survival in India 1988, Caroline Merchant, The Death of Nature 1980, Susan Griffin, Women and Nature 1978. The concept that gave us nature and women as nurturing forces, ecological balance and gender equality and environmental ethics. Let's see what are the questions. Ecofeminism primarily draws parallels between, so correct answer of this question would be the exploitation of women and the exploitation of nature. They connects both. Ecofeminism argues patriarchy and capitalism oppress both nature and women through the domination and control. Okay. Then we have post-colonial feminism. Then they are talking about the post-colonial feminism. Post-colonial feminism talks about how colonialism and patriarchy jointly suppress women, especially in non-Western societies. Okay, non-Western societies like India, we have a, and in this you can see Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak, Can the Subaltern Speak 1988, Chandra Talpade, Mohanty, Under Western Eyes 1984. They talked about the subaltern woman, voice and representation, and the critique of Western feminism. Okay. The questions they talk about, the essay Can the Subaltern Speak criticizes, the essay Can the Subaltern Speak critiques which of the following? So, it talks about the silencing of marginalized women by both colonialism and Western feminism. Okay. Then another one we have cultural feminism. Each type of branch I have included in this feminist criticism. So I hope you do not miss the video and please share to everyone. And please subscribe the channel also if you're watching for the first time. And if you want the PDF, you can comment. So cultural feminism celebrates women's inherent differences from men, focuses on female creativity, emotion and nurturing values. Okay. Key figure in this you can find Carol Gilligan and Mary Daly. Concept they talked about celebration of womanhood, female ethics and values and the spiritual feminism. And let's see the question. Which branch of feminism focuses on celebrating women's difference rather than equality with men? So it is cultural feminism. Okay. Then we have cyber feminism. What are these? What is the cyber feminism? It explores the relationship between women, technology, and digital spaces that focuses on freedom from the physical and social contrast. Still, there are many people in the modern world, if you're talking about the cyber feminism, the girls specifically create their identity on any social platform by changing their real identity, by having the other name. You all know what I'm talking about. So this is because they have the pressure of their family, specifically the male one in their families. their brother, their father, their husband. And because of this, there lot of crime also happens. So I believe if you are true to yourself, if you are doing everything right, if you are anywhere on any social platform, there is nothing going to be wrong if you are right, if you are true. You are following your own limited rules and regulations. Key figures we have Sadie Plant, Zeros Plus Ones, the work, Donna Haraway, A Cyber Manifesto, 1985. Concept Cyber Women Beyond Gender, Technology as Empowerment and Feminism in the Digital Age. Questions you can see. Donna Haraway's A Cyber Manifesto is a foundational text for cyber feminism. This is the PYQs. You can remember cyber feminism is important. She used this cyber as a metaphor for post-gender identity merging human and machine to challenge traditional gender binaries. So here also if a female joins any social media or social platform, they are also they also has been harassing by the male one. Na? They do a nasty comment. They, what should I say? I can't even describe. We all know what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to explain you. They faced a lot of issues. So that is why many female one create hide their identities. So there is nothing wrong if they are doing so. So here the difference is created, no? The difference is created between the male and female because both are somehow we can say. I'm not saying that both are wrong, both are right, but what is the current situation is in this today's world, we both are responsible. What we have created, we are not limiting to ourselves, but we can say, we are misusing them. We are not true to ourselves. We are not observing anybody. We are not watching. We are not looking to anybody with the good intention. And that is why the situation, the circumstances creates. Think about it, what I am trying to say. Okay. Then we have sub schools of feminism, the one I have already talked about. Okay, post-colonial feminism, black feminism, queer feminism, everything. The important keywords in feminist theory you must remember: patriarchy, gynocriticism, creature feminine, the other, sexual politics, androgynous mind, objection, gender performativity, subaltern, intersectionality. If you are about to crack your net only or JRF, these will be enough to study in depth. Okay. So let me show you some PYQs, everybody. This is a very important, you must not miss. Who coined the term gynocriticism, which focuses on women as writers and their own literary tradition? Gynocriticism, we just have studied, so I do not need to tell you the options, but Ellen Sholter is the correct answer. Okay, Ellen Sholter. Alan Sholter introduced gynocriticism in a literature of their own 1977, focusing on the study of women's writing as a distinct tradition. She identified the three phases: feminine, feminist, and the female. You must know what these three things define, meaning of these three. Then, which of the following statements reflects Simone de Beauvoir's central idea in the second sex? One is born a woman, not made one. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. Man is the measure of all things. Gender is a performance. Correct statement of this, the works she has discussed, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman, is created by the male. Deep over here argues that womanhood is a socially constructed, not biological. Her concept of the other explains how patriarchy defines women in relation to men. So, men are responsible for that. Then here, match the following theorists with their concept: Helen Zeus, gynocriticism; Judith Butler, gender performativity; Alan Sholter, a creature feminine. So we have to match Helen Zeus, we can match with option 3, Judith Butler, we can match with Second, gender performativity, and Ellen Sholter we can match with the gynocriticism. Okay. Here is another one. The Kate Millett, sexual politic is the correct one. So, correct answer we have matched. Next question we have, which feminist writer reinterpreted the mad woman in Jane Eyre as a symbol of female rage and depression? Adrienne Rich, Sandra Gilbert, and Susan Gruber. So, correct answer would be option B, Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gruber, who talked about reinterpreted. Next question we have, who among the following is associated with post-colonial feminism and the essay Can the Subaltern Speak? So it is none other than Gayatri Chakravarti's Spivak. Okay. Another question we have, which feminist critic distinguishes between Anglo-American and French feminism and introduced the concept like écriture féminin to English readers. Okay. So the correct answer was Troil Moy. In Sexual and Textual Politics 1985, she talked about and she mapped the difference between Anglo-American empirical feminism and the French psychoanalytic criticism. Okay. So this was the last question. How do you like the session based on feminism, feminist criticism, feminist literary theory? Do comment, do suggest your opinion, give your opinion. So let's meet in the next class. Mock test I have started, everybody. 200, 300 questions I have already uploaded and remaining will upload soon. So thank you so much for joining. Do take care of yourself and bye-bye.